In today's episode, I want to break down what's happening with the UK economy right now. The situation isn't looking favorable for the newly formed government that came into power on July 24th. There's even buzz that they're considering undoing some aspects of Brexit and seeking closer cooperation with the European Union. For those less familiar with British politics, the UK was a part of the European Union from 1973 until early 2020, a membership that lasted over 47 years. In 2016, however, the public was asked to cast their vote on whether to stay in or leave the EU. The results narrowly leaned toward leaving, with 51.9% supporting Brexit. Since then, the decision has been hotly debated, but officially, the UK separated from the EU in January 2020. I tend to steer clear of discussing Brexit because most folks in the UK are over it. It feels like old news. Yet, recent developments have brought the topic back to the forefront. Word on the street is that the Labour government, which took office in July, might be looking to revisit key Brexit policies. They're reportedly floating ideas like allowing more mobility for young people under 30 and renegotiating the 2020 agreement to secure better terms for the UK. Of course, revising the deal would come with strings attached, potentially requiring the UK to compromise on areas like regulatory alignment or fishing territories. Before diving deeper into the Brexit discussion, let's first examine the current state of the British economy. This graph highlights year-over-year changes in the UK's GDP, which are reported quarterly. From late 2021 through 2023, the UK saw a consistent slowdown in economic growth. By the latter half of 2023, the economy had contracted, meaning the country officially entered a recession. That downturn ended in early 2024, when GDP grew by 0.7% in the first quarter. However, growth slowed to 0.4% in the second quarter, and by the third quarter, GDP had stagnated, showing no increase at all. Looking at the bigger picture, it's evident that concerns are mounting over a potential return to shrinking GDP. Monthly data reveals that economic output fell by 0.1% in both September and October 2024, suggesting that the next quarterly report could reflect an economic contraction, pushing the UK back into recession. So what's causing this slowdown? Is it tied to Labour's new policies, or is this the result of decisions made by the previous Conservative administration? Labour claims they inherited a dire situation, while the Conservatives argue that Labour's strategies are to blame. Labour's main economic move so far has been unveiling their budget at the end of October. According to Chancellor Rachel Reeves, the outgoing government left a $22 billion financial deficit that needed to be addressed. To tackle this, Labour introduced one of the most significant tax hikes in the UK's history, raising around $40 billion in total, equal to roughly 1.2% of GDP. Now let's shift our focus to consumer behavior. This chart tracks retail sales in the UK, which is a key indicator of how confident people are in their financial situations. During the first half of 2024, retail activity declined in February, April, and June, showing a lack of consumer confidence. However, after Labour assumed power in July, spending picked up significantly. Retail sales increased by 1.1% in July, 1.9% in August, and 3.2% in September. That momentum slowed as Labour's budget drew closer. In October, retail sales growth dipped to 2%, and by November, it was only 0.5%. This drop-off suggests that consumers are now feeling more cautious and less optimistic about the future. Businesses are also showing signs of unease. This chart measures business sentiment, assessing factors like new orders, operational costs, and pricing. The scale ranges from 50, extremely pessimistic, to plus 115, very optimistic, with 0 being a neutral outlook. Over the past 3 years, business confidence has been consistently subdued. Zooming in on 2024, businesses were slightly pessimistic in the first quarter. Optimism improved in the second quarter, reaching a score of +9. But by the third quarter, confidence plummeted to 9, and the latest data for Q4 shows a dramatic decline to 24, the lowest point since late 2022. Inflation is another pressing issue. The UK targets an inflation rate of 2%, and the first half of 2024 seemed promising as inflation dropped from 4% in January to the target level by May and June. However, inflation edged back up to 2.2% in July and August, dipped to 1.7% in September, and then rose again, hitting 2.6% in November. This upward trend has raised alarms that price increases might accelerate further. Rising inflation directly impacts interest rates. Between late 2021 and August 2023, the Bank of England aggressively raised rates from 0.1% to 5.25%, while 2 rate cuts in 2024 brought them down to 4.75%. The recent uptick in inflation has paused any further reductions. High borrowing costs are discouraging both consumers and businesses from taking out loans, further dampening economic growth and increasing the likelihood of another recession. Now, circling back to Brexit, speculation is mounting that the Labour government is exploring ways to strengthen ties with the EU. The British Chambers of Commerce recently outlined 5 recommendations for improving relations, which include 1. Simplifying export processes for smaller businesses, especially in the food industry. 2. Introducing a youth mobility program to facilitate work exchanges and school trips. 3. Enhancing awareness of upcoming regulatory changes. 4. Negotiating a Norway-style arrangement to simplify VAT compliance for small firms. 5. Establishing mutual recognition of professional qualifications between the UK and EU. Labour has reportedly formed a task force of 100 individuals to work on renegotiating parts of the Brexit agreement. While details remain scarce, many believe this could signal a gradual move toward undoing some aspects of Brexit. However, any renegotiation will undoubtedly require concessions, whether that means ceding regulatory autonomy or granting fishing rights. To sum up, the UK economy is currently facing serious challenges. Economic growth has stalled, inflation is creeping back up, and interest rates remain high. After an initial surge in confidence following Labour's victory, both consumer and business sentiment are now faltering, raising the risk of a recession in early 2025. On top of that, Labour's push to revisit the Brexit deal adds another layer of uncertainty. While closer ties with the EU might bring some economic relief, they will likely come at a steep cost in terms of compromises. Thanks for sticking with me until the end. If you found this analysis helpful or thought-provoking, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up.